Welcome to the SwimStrong Dryland Podcast. We are dedicated to inspiring and educating the swimming world. Our podcast highlights the work, character, and achievements in and around the SwimStrong community. All right, everybody, we are here with Izzy Beu, which I'm really excited about talking with her. You guys are going to hear some pretty inspiring stuff from her and her journey. But first, Izzy, we got to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. First question. What's the best Halloween costume you ever pulled off?
Probably Power Ranger. That's a pretty good one from me.
Which color Power Ranger were you?
Pink.
Okay, awesome. How about favorite cartoon character?
I'd say Olaf because he reminds me of my youngest brother.
There you go. Shout out to your brother. How about a hidden talent that you have that a lot of people might not know?
I don't know if it's so hidden, but I'm like super double jointed, so
It's a good thing to have as a swim athlete.
yeah.
How about your favorite swim meet food? Go to.
Fruit snacks. I'm a big fruit snack fan.
Do you have a preferred fruit snack brand?
Mott's, because that's typically what our coaches buy. So
those are tasty. How about a celebrity you'd love to meet?
I don't know if he's a celebrity, but more of a motivational speaker. Like, I'd love to meet David Goggins. Think he's awesome, and the stuff he's kind of overcome is so awesome.
Incredible story. I'd love to meet that guy too. How about your favorite pool to swim at?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I feel like I love swimming outside, but it's definitely like a challenge on the backstroke. So I think I have to go with the Nat in IUPUI.
That's a good one. That is a good one. And last but not least, what is your favorite part of SwimStrong Dryland?
I definitely say the community. I think like the accountability partners are really cool, and like that relationship has been something that I've kind of developed over the past year and a half now. And also kind of the success that it's brought me, and the success that's attracted other people to SwimStrong Dryland.
That's awesome. The community is incredible, and you are part of that community, and we're super thankful for you. Blessed to have you. And the reason that you're on here is because your journey has been wicked inspiring. The things that you've done over the last couple of years have been amazing. Watching your journey and you rise up the national rankings on SwimCloud and being a perennial all-star, so to speak, that Georgia is going to be getting, your class of 2025. Yes. They are very lucky to have you in about a year and a half. But could you talk, before we get into some of those things, can you talk a little bit about your swim journey, how it began? I love hearing the beginnings of every swim athlete and what got you into the sport in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of started when we moved into a house with a pool, and kind of like that survival instinct, the safety side of things was big for my parents. But I fell in love with the sport from there and was pretty bad at soccer. So this swimming really stuck, and like I made so many friendships that I just love being at the pool.
That's awesome. And can you recall a time like where something clicked to where you were like, oh, I'm pretty good at this sport? Because you are really good. So when did you start to realize that?
I think like I actually kind of realized it a couple months before COVID, like doing private lessons with my coach, and like him saying like, this is where I think you could be at the end of the season. Like, and it started being real for me that like I could compete with those top kids.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's an interesting time too for it to click, because right before the world kind of shut down. So
yeah,
how did you? Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it was definitely an interesting time, but I think like I was lucky because we had a lot of friends with pools, and like our coaches would kind of come and like coach us in this tiny pool, and we would like wear stretch cords to get the most out of the like 10-yard distance that we had. But yeah,
it's a wild time to even think back on and remember. But I mean, the things that some people did to really find new levels and continue to go forward. You really saw your passion for this sport come out at that point. And how disciplined are you willing to be when it, all the normal advantages that you have and the things we used to take for granted have been taken from us. And would you say just from that, it's always interesting to hear coming out of that, do you feel like your passion for the sport grew, or do you feel like that was a really mentally tough time? That was more of it was a tough time then, but it was a great learning experience. And now looking back, it's been beneficial for me. How do you typically view that?
I definitely think it was tough in the moment, but I honestly think that's contributed to how much I love swimming. And thinking back on that, I missed it so much that I thought about it and I was like, I never want to miss a day of this because you only get so many.
That's awesome. That's a great mindset. You appreciate time a lot more. You appreciate things a lot more once they've been taken. And sometimes, as odd as it might sound, that something like that can be a gift to us, because our passion and gratitude can soar. And this is something I really want to dive into with you. So you've had a meteoric rise over the last couple of years in your swimming career, which has just been really inspiring to see. But the main reason that I am excited to have you on here and for people to listen to you is because you've really dove into the leadership and team culture aspect of the sport that so many people miss. I'm wondering if you could share, what are some of the things that you've done that outside the pool that you brought to the pool that maybe are a little unique, that maybe people don't know too much about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of the leadership side of things started for me when I met this guy who did this leadership program through our athletic department, and he kind of was teaching two kids from every sport at the school what it meant to be a leader and how to inspire success on individual teams. And I think his words really stuck to me in the sense that if I wanted to make a positive impact, it was on me. And it was on me first to inspire this, changing the pronoun from it being only me to it being we. We do this all together. And even though it's such a individual sport, it really does take a team to get you through those hard times.
Yeah. And how have you practically done that? So I think a lot of people can listen to motivational videos, can educate themselves around that topic, where a lot of people don't even do that, but the people who do, where a lot of people fall short of making an impact, is they don't apply it. So what are some things that maybe you've done to try and apply that as a swim athlete, as a part of a greater team?
Yeah, I mean, I think communication is the biggest piece of it. And just being able to talk through and be vulnerable with your teammates is such a big thing. And building that trust, building that relationship. So this season, we really started bringing in more opportunities outside of the water because you obviously can't really talk when you're in the water. But yeah, we started doing this special Dryland Thursday afternoon that's specifically ran by the athletes, and we kind of decide and we make these awesome relay teams, and we compete, we yell at each other, but it's all love. And we all got to have these circle, we would sit in a circle at the end of it and say one thing that we're proud of each other for, and one thing that each of us needs to do better to help each other out.
That's really cool, taking the time to do something like that. How have you seen that time just expressing gratitude or expressing ways in which you want help or to be pushed? How have you seen that make an impact on the team bonds and the team success?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think at the beginning it was hard to convince our coach that this was time worth it being invested in. A lot of coaches are all about that grind and getting in the yards, but just seeing your teammates know your goals is something that's so cool, because they're so excited for you when you reach them, and you're so excited for them when they reach theirs, because you kind of see that every day and you know that you're giving them what they need to be successful.
Well, shout out to your coach for allowing you guys to do that, because I do think a lot of people get stuck in the mindset of we got to get all this stuff done, but they never take the time to really focus on the culture and the people who make everything happen, which is the most important thing. And connecting with people and having an actual bond with your teammates and your coaches, and having a family atmosphere on the team You can do
Yeah.
way more than you could ever imagine if you are doing that. So I think it's incredible that you're leading the charge on that. What for all the athletes out there who are like, hey, that'd be cool to start something like that. What type of resistance did you face, whether from even teammates or coaches, parent, like any type of resistance that you had to overcome? Because I'm sure it wasn't just like, oh, I have this idea, this great idea, and let me implement it, and it's just gone so smoothly. Anytime you try to make a change that's different, I'm sure
Yeah.
people will resist or make fun of or whatever. And to be a leader, you have to be willing to endure that. What is that? What
Right.
did that look like for you? And what advice would you have for anyone trying to do that?
I definitely did go through the resistance phase. I mean, I kind of started this journey as an underclassman, and I think like the upperclassmen were not big fans of that. Like they're like, "This is my team. I want to be in charge my senior year." But it really started like getting into it when I had those deep conversations with my coach about what I thought we could do and like what the impact would be. And I think like that's the best place to start because he ultimately has control over where we spend our time and kind of those things that we're preaching to our team. So it kind of started with that. And I didn't have the best relationship with him at the beginning, but having those like hard conversations and saying like, this is something that I think we need to invest in to be more successful at the level that we want to compete at. I think that's what really allowed me to kind of like find my groove and be able to have him kind of agree that this was worth it.
Yeah, that's super cool. Again, props to you for leading the charge on that. Props to your coach for, being willing to hear different things and to try something different. And honestly, like you guys, the athletes, should have a say in what's going on
Right.
at the team culture, because you guys are the ones who drive it. There's a big difference between, we talk about an athlete-driven culture all the time with SwimStrong. If you have a culture where it's just the coaches who try to get you to work hard, just the coaches who hold you accountable, just the coaches who try to get you to cheer for each other and care about each other, man, that's a miserable team to be a part of.
Right.
And it's just like, it's not fun, and it's not one that's going to be very successful. But when people like you and your teammates are taking it upon yourselves to care for each other, to hold each other accountable, to pick each other up when you're down, to encourage each other, like that's a team not only that has strong bonds and it's fun to be a part of, but happy swimmers and swimmers that are having fun are also fast swimmers.
Right.
And they get it in together. And so I think people really miss that and don't realize how powerful that is. But anytime you love something, you're going to want to be great at it versus when you're just going through the motions. Another thing I think that might keep people from trying to do stuff like that, other than the fear of pushback, which you just have to expect as a leader. Anytime you're trying to make change or lead, there's going to be pushback. But so you have to have persistence. But I also think sometimes people misunderstand, like, people oftentimes think, well, how is this going to benefit me? Like, if I'm just serving others.
Right.
But I strongly believe that it helps you grow as a person too. How have you seen you stepping out of your comfort zone and being invested in other people's lives has made an impact on others, but also on you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that kind of being a leader brings you is that empathy, like the trait of being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and kind of understand where they're coming from. And like I think that trait especially on the hard days is really important. Like you see a teammate that's not having the best day, like being able to be there with them and tell them what they need to hear, sometimes more than what they want to hear, is an important thing to not only get them where they want to be, but also to help you kind of grow as a person and say like, I was there when they needed me to be there for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And the reward you get from being invested in other people's lives, I think people really don't understand how much joy, like there's so much more joy being
Oh
invested
yeah.
with other people than just yourself.
Yeah, and it's not fun to be jealous all the time. It's really fun when you can have the joy when you're swimming fast and when your teammates are swimming fast. It's definitely a two-way street there.
Yeah. That I do think that's something people miss a lot. They like end up focusing on comparing themselves to others, being jealous that they're not where somebody else is, instead of like cheering and like being
Right.
genuinely happy. And like, that doesn't do anything good for anyone. It doesn't do anything good for them.
Right.
And it certainly isn't good for you because you're just feeling terrible. So
Yeah, I mean, and like there's nothing, you're not losing anything by cheering for someone else. Like you're more than capable of getting to where they are, or they're more than capable of getting to where you are. It's not a limited success kind of story.
that's so true. Yeah, nothing is being taken from you when somebody else does well. Like it doesn't cost you anything to cheer for somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And I think this is something that a lot of people would experience so much more success if they had that mindset. So I
Right.
think that's the foundation of your success, is that you are very much a leader. You're very much others oriented, high character individual that you just know is going to, and you're not perfect, but you're going to try to do the right things, and you're going to own it when you screw up on something and try
Yeah.
to get better. And so I really hope people listening are challenged by that and think, what is one practical thing I can do to really start leading and go out of my comfort zone to care for others and grow in that
Yeah.
area.
I mean, sometimes too, like it's not all about what you say. Like even just body language is important, and like being on the wall, like just like being able to talk to other people instead of being off in your own world is a big thing.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to lead. And let's talk a little about your training. So how did you go from, so you have this foundation of your character and your mindset and leadership skills, but you know, a lot of people want to be like, hey, I want to be a top 50 in the country swimmer too.
Yeah.
But I don't know if actually people really do, because they don't know what it takes to get there. Give people some insight into the life of Izzy the last couple of years. Like, what does your routine look like with swim, with SwimStrong Dryland, with anything around nutrition, sleep, leader? Like, what does your
Yeah.
day to day look like, and how is it unique from, you know, maybe the typical person?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say it's a challenge. Like the mornings, getting up at 4:45 is not for everyone. And yeah, and sometimes we do things that are hard, like especially going into that 4 a.m. is definitely a challenge. But I feel like embracing the challenge is an important piece of that. If you don't buy into your training, you're not getting anything out of it. So that's been a big thing for me, and I think, like, I'm very lucky in the sense that, like, I swim IM, so I kinda get to train a lot of different things and swim with a lot of different people throughout the week, so, it kinda keeps me going, the variation in things, but it's definitely a challenge, especially on, that the Wednesday morning where it's, like, the middle of the week, so only halfway there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you are in the midst of like hard training weeks, where does your mind go? Like Wednesday morning, let's say, and everybody's like, okay, here we go again. What types of things do you tell yourself to get the most out of that?
I think like recently I've been doing a lot of reading on like there's this book called Habits That Make a Champion, and then I also read this book recently. It's called Stillness is the Key, and it's all about like what you tell yourself is how you're gonna perform. So I always tell myself that like I got this, and I'm actually always the first one in the parking lot. So those moments where I'm the only one in the parking lot, I just think about how many people aren't willing to do this every day, and like what kind of sets me apart from my competition.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, arriving first is it gives you time to spend more time investing in your mindset too and getting ready for what's
Yes.
coming, but also it's just a discipline that a lot of people don't have. So that's some unique insight into the discipline there. And how about with the dryland training? What's your experience been like so far with Swim Strong, and what does that look like? You're on the small group teams that you're doing it
Yeah.
individually, and so what does that day to day look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's definitely different because it takes a level of obviously discipline that like you don't have anyone on you to make sure that you're doing it. And it's all about like what you want to get out of it. So for me, I always kind of do it after school. So I'm still tired from morning and then school, and then I still have afternoon to go to, but I just turn on the music really loud and I get it done. But but yeah, like I see the benefits of doing it, so I'm really motivated to keep doing it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think people confuse just going through the motions or doing workouts sometimes with like
Yeah.
consistent discipline. Like there's a difference between, I
Right.
think really motivation and discipline are two different things. Like motivation is going to come and go. You've mentioned several times now, like, hey, I'm not always like really excited before I'm about to start this. And sometimes I'm
Yeah.
tired and sometimes I'm like, do I? But you're like, hey, I know what's on the other side. And so what I'm hearing from you is consistency and discipline. Like you don't
Yeah.
make excuses for yourself and you know what you want. And so you do what it takes to get there, whether it's training your mind, training in the water, dry land training, being a
Yeah.
leader. Is that accurate, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's accurate, and I have a place in my house where I, like, sticky note all my goals, so that's, like, a big thing too, is that I see those all the time, and, like, I think about ways that what I'm gonna do to get there, and this is a big piece of that, so
That's awesome. And you were telling me a little bit earlier about you've gotten some of your teammates even doing SwimStrong, and
yes.
how did that materialize?
Yeah, I mean, so I started doing it, before then, so I've been doing it for about a year now, and I've seen the effects, benefit me a lot, and so have my coaches, and my coaches are, really curious to kinda learn more, and they're steering some of my teammates in that direction too, as well as me, because I think everyone could benefit from doing Swim Strong. But yeah, like, the biggest thing for us was, like, seeing that power off my start has been super cool, because I was typically the last one off the block all the time, and now I'm not. So, so he's like, yeah, like the improvement that we've seen is crazy. And to imagine like what we could get our sprinters doing, like where for them it's like a matter of tenths of a second from
Hmm.
going from 23 to 22, like that's magical. And like them being excited about it, me being excited for them to do it has been so cool.
Yeah, that is something that I definitely admire because it goes back to what you were saying. Like you found something that's been really great for you, and instead of just being like, hey, I have this secret thing that I'm doing to be better than everybody else, like let me tell my teammates about it too so we can get
Yeah.
better together and challenge each other. And was that pretty easy for you after kind of the way that you think, or in terms of just like sharing that with everybody?
I mean, I definitely think it's a little bit backwards because a lot of people like to keep things close to their chest sometimes. But for me, like I've always liked to share what I'm doing to get better, and like if that's gonna make my teammates better, like great. Like our relays are gonna be fantastic, and I get excited about that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. And then everybody on your team, when they get better, that means your practices are better too, right? And people are more
right.
excited and they're seeing results. And then you guys all push each other and you find these levels that, you couldn't have had before because you're all pushing each other and in this thing together. So,
Right.
um,
The competition definitely excites me about it too. Like just having people to race at practice is so much better. Like you can't go through the motions because if you want to get your hand on the wall first, you're gonna have to fight for it.
that's true. That's so true. And obviously you mentioned like seeing your power improve in significant ways and your speed. You've also improved all of your mid distance and longer distance events too. You've kind of really like
Yes.
done it all. What would
Yeah.
you say your favorite, if you had to pick one, your favorite event that you get to race? If you're like, man, I get to race one event at the Olympics one day, this is the one I really want to do.
I feel like that's a challenging question. I think the event that most people would think I would say is 2 IM, but I really like the 100 fly recently. Like I've kind of had a big stride in that event and kind of like finding my groove again. So I'm excited about the potential there, and that's like one of the sprints that I can get out with the rest of the field with and not have to back end my way through as much. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure that is a ever changing thing when you have such a versatile skill set like you may have in 2025, you may say a totally different event would be like your dream event to swim, like to race.
yeah.
But it's been very cool to see the progress there. What are some of the goals you have this coming year and going into trials year, going into, you got
Yeah.
a year and a half before you go to college. what are some personal goals? You talked about having sticky notes in your room. What are some personal things that you're really excited about?
I mean, I think the trials cut is always a big goal of a lot of people. So that's definitely in there for me. But there's some other things too. Some like state records that I'm looking at, and like I'm going into my senior year of high school. This is my last opportunity at those. So like the 2 IM state record, looking at that one. And then there's some other things too, and like some big milestones, like breaking, still looking to break 2 minutes in the two fly and stuff like that. And it's ever changing. And I think like
Mm-hmm.
what gets you there is ultimately those day-to-day goals, where it's like, hey, like today I'm going to breathe bilaterally when I
Mm-hmm.
swim freestyle, no matter what, no matter how tired I get. I'm not going to go into survival swimming here, or or I'm going to do one more rep than I think I can, because this is what's going to separate me from everyone else. And I think that like the one more rep thing is really interesting, because that's what they do down at Georgia is they always do one more rep. So that's something that really sold me when I was down there on my visit, but because that's
That's cool.
just aligned so well with what I try to do every day. So
That's awesome. Yeah, the day-to-day goals, like the practice by practice goals, that's awesome. Because a lot of people write down like big stuff they want, cuts they want to do,
right,
where they want to go to school, that type of thing. But then when it comes to like the attention to details on a day-to-day basis,
yeah,
people miss the process of actually getting to those bigger dream goals that you have. And so I'm excited to see you knock your goals out of the park. I think it's some people are afraid to share what their goals are because they like don't want to
yeah,
say things out loud because, oh, what if I fail? It's like, who cares? Like, who cares if you have these goals and you're willing to work for them? Like, no matter where you end up, you're going to be happy with the result because you
right,
did everything you could to get there. And then, but yeah, you have with the mindset you have and the way that you work, I don't doubt anything is possible for you, Izzy, and I'm excited to be a part of that journey. And
yeah.
you mentioned Georgia and how you picked Georgia. Tell us a little bit about, give some shout out to the Bulldogs here. How did you end up picking them? What was that process like for you? As I'm sure a lot of people are in the midst of the recruiting process and trying to figure
Right.
out their own way.
Right. I mean, I think throughout the process, they were definitely one of my favorites even before I started talking to them, just because their established success has been insane. And 7-time national champions is not something you can say about a lot of other programs. And just the stuff that they're doing there is truly amazing. And throughout the process, like talking with the coaching staff and kind of learning what their philosophy was like, I definitely felt like that was a place where I would be most successful. But I do think that being on campus and meeting that team was something that really sold it to me. And I was down there with a close friend of mine who's actually going to Georgia as well, and we had a blast there. And she came up to me in the middle of our trip and like started crying. She was like, "This is where I have to be," and I was like, "I agree with you. Like, this is amazing. Like, the kind of stuff that they want to do is something that we want to do." And I'm so excited about it. Like,
That's
I
awesome.
think about it all the time.
That's awesome. Well, Georgia is definitely lucky to have you as well. And I have no doubt you're going to bring incredible things there to the team culture, and the things that you'll do as an athlete and a student will be second to none, I'm sure. But so you found that and you're really excited for it. What advice would you give to someone if you could give advice to your younger self, like maybe thinking about being, a lot of times people end up really stressed out in this
Yeah.
process, and I'm not a huge fan of how quickly we're asking young kids to make a decision that'll change the rest of their life. So how did you take it one day at a time
Yeah.
and make the decision that you felt comfortable with? What advice would you give to people who are going through that now, or even to your younger self, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I mean, the first day is definitely very overwhelming just because it's a lot of inbound. But I'd say to like take your time and really go through and think about like does this like kind of fit with what I want to do? And I think recruiting really starts with like asking yourself what your goals are or what your collegiate goals may look like and how you fit in somewhere. Like maybe you have certain preferences, like you'd like to stay this far away from home, like stuff like that. But I think really evaluating each school is important. And I kind of didn't do that as much as I should have, and went a little bit crazy and kind of spread myself a little bit too thin at the beginning. And I was like, this is so stressful. Like at practice, the only thing I could think about was this, and that's not a good thing because they're recruiting you for what you do in the pool. So making sure your focus is still there is really important. But yeah, when I got a little bit stressed out there, I started going back to I worked in the summer as like a swim lesson instructor.
Oh, cool.
And like making sure that I still did that was important, because then I was like balancing my time that I had away from practice with like the recruiting, but also I'd be like doing something that I love, which is teaching little kids how to swim. So
That's awesome.
that balance was really important for me. And I think like just making sure that like you keep your parents involved is also important. My parents were pretty involved, but I know some people try to do it all alone, and like that ends up being more of a challenge than it would have been if you just keep your parents in the loop.
Yeah. No, that's awesome advice. And last question I have for you is centered around, do you have anybody in your life, like personal relationships, and you can however many come to mind, that have been an inspiration to you in your swim journey, people who have made a big impact on you that you'd like to shout out right now?
Yeah, well, I feel like I have to start with SwimStrong and like the whole family here. I think that what you guys are doing here is so awesome and inspiring, especially to people in a situation like me where we don't have that like team-wide dryland opportunity, but getting to do it in a small group and kind of building friends on the pool deck has been really awesome.
We're super grateful.
Yeah, and then I feel like I have to shout out my high school team as well, just like giving me those opportunities to be a leader, and also my high school coach for being a mentor to me and like really caring about me as a person over an athlete has been something that like I haven't really noticed how important that is until kind of going into the challenges of high school, like balancing the academics and obviously the insane demands of athletics. So
Yeah,
that's been really cool.
that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. It's always important to have people in your corner who you can trust and who are really there for you no matter what. And we're super blessed to have you. The feeling is very much mutual. We love having you, Izzy, in our program and being a part of the SwimStrong family. And I know you bless not only your accountability partner, but the entire small group team and the entire SwimStrong community. And I have no doubt that this podcast, people hearing a little bit more of your heart and your mindset, will inspire people that you may never even get the opportunity to meet. So we're just super grateful for you and all that you do. And we're going to be cheering for you like crazy. See you on the pool deck at some meets, I'm sure. And rooting so hard for you. But thanks so much for taking the time to be on here, sharing your story. And let's crush it the rest of this season. All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you for listening to the SwimStrong Dryland Podcast. If you'd like to be a part of the SwimStrong Dryland family, you can reach out to us via email or social media. You can also follow SwimStrong Dryland on YouTube and TikTok for more educational content.